Donald Trump as US president mean for the global markets, and does it augur well for the global markets? What does it mean for India, and what does it mean for our markets and our trade with the United States of America? To discuss all that and more, we are joined by Jeff Chowdhry, Senior Portfolio Manager of LGM Investments. He joins in via Skype. Hi, Jeff. Appreciate you joining in on the show. My first question to you, were you surprised? Were you shocked? What's the impact that you're expecting immediately?
Not surprised and not shocked. Having been through Brexit and seen in the UK what happens when the popular vote rises against incumbents or the traditional, I was not surprised. I didn't believe the US polls, which said that Hillary Clinton would win. I genuinely believed that Trump would get in, and I'm not surprised at all.
So what should the markets take away from this? Markets have been in panic mode. There seems to be some form of recovery. But are you expecting some bloodshed in global markets in the near term? And thereby, can we expect some form of panic in India in the near term?
Well, I've been looking at sort of politics and elections for many, many years, particularly in the emerging market space, but also in the developed market space. And my experience is a couple of things. First of all, generally, when people are trying to become elected, they often say a lot of things which actually don't happen when they get into power. So in the case of Trump, obviously, he said some very extreme things and some pretty nasty things. But I think that most of what he said is unlikely to happen. The second thing I would say is that the markets obviously reacted negatively in the short term, but I think the medium-term outlook actually is quite positive, because he's been talking on an economic basis about lowering corporation tax, increasing investment, increasing the growth rate of the US economy. And these are all good things longer term, which should help the world economy and indeed emerging markets like India.
You know, Jeff, I want to pick up on the point you made about the radical statements perhaps not really fructifying into reality. But if you take his statement specifically on immigration, and that's what most Indian IT companies, for instance, have been worried about, should the Indian IT sector, should Indians brace for tighter immigration norms and thereby stricter screening?
Well, the simple message is law-abiding Indians who go along to the US to work either in the IT sector or or any other sector shouldn't be worried at all. I mean, basically, he mentioned the word immigration and Mexicans in the same breath, which I think was misinterpreted by a lot of people. Basically, what he's emphasizing is if you are, if you're a terrorist or you're likely to be a terrorist or you're going to break the law in the US, the chances of you getting into the US are going to be much harder and much tougher. And that obviously doesn't apply for the vast majority of people, of immigrants who come into the US. So yes, I mean, I think visa requirements would probably be a bit tougher. It'll be a bit tougher to get in. But at the end of the day, 99.9% of the people who are going to the US have got absolutely nothing to worry about.
Very quickly, Jeff, we spoke about not actually following through with some statements that he's made, but he's categorically spoken about scrapping Obamacare. If you look at the math and the impact on India, they've seen the numbers, that is, India's pharma exports to the US were 31 billion in 2010, and they increased to 66 billion in 5 years with Obamacare. If this is scrapped, what's the impact that we should prepare for?
Yeah, I mean, I think individual sectors will be affected. I mean, I think there are certain types of measures which I think he will push through. And remember, the Republicans now control both houses as well as being president. And I think Obamacare was their sort of number one priority before. So I think there is a good chance Obamacare will be affected, will be repealed. I think it will affect pharmaceutical companies, not just in India, but globally. And I think that probably will be enacted. But, I think other sectors, could be positively effective. As I said earlier, if he does succeed in his objective of getting to 4% growth, the US is still the world's engine of the world's economy. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of sectors will do very well out of that if he manages to achieve it.
Okay, Jeff, very quickly, we're tight on time. If you look at his tax plan, the fact is that he is talking about reducing tax rates to about 15% from the current 35%. Will that make it simpler for countries like India and companies here to invest in America?
Well, I think it'll make it simpler, but also I think the bigger effect is all these US multinational companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, who effectively keep all of their money abroad because corporation tax are so much lower in these countries. I think the first thing they'll do is they'll repatriate it back into the US. And that's what he's hoping it will do, because they'll lead to an investment in the US economy.
Okay, Jeff, we leave it at that. The takeaway is expect the unexpected always. Thanks for joining in, Jeff, with that. But we spoke to